Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from September 6, 2024, and I'm recording this on Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. As I give you those dates so you know when this information is most relevant because, as you will see when we look at this list, I was going to say two lists, but as we look at this list, how much the prices have changed even in 6 months. So, also, as always, we're looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. Each week, they put out a list of 10 comics that are moving in the market, that are jumping in value, that are selling in high numbers, that people are chasing. And we look back 6 months later to see what factors caused those books to get hot. What factors are affecting them now? How have they responded in the market since they were hot in the books that people were chasing? Should you have been patient? Should you have bought in? And see if we can all learn a little bit about what books to chase, what books to be patient on, so we make a little bit better decisions about when we buy books, the books that we love, not necessarily about what the books we love we should buy. Does that make sense? I don't know if it does. But anyway, we got 18 books to talk about, so let's dig in and see what we can learn this week. First up, we have Amazing Spider-Man number 36, the 9/11 issue. Every September, this hits the list, and about this time of year, you can always get it for less. Back then, it was an $85 book for raw copies on average. 9.8 hit $350. I think that might have been a newsstand, surely. But anyway, yeah, a big value on that 9.8. Now it's a $20 to $90 book with most of the sales like $40, $50 kind of thing. 9.8, $110 to $130. So definitely down in a trap. Don't buy this book in September. I mean, that's really every year it hits the list. There's people that remember, people that chase this issue. It's a really cool book. I still have my original copy. Super happy to have it. But if you're wanting to buy this book, do it in March because when people aren't really thinking about it. Next, we had one Option News book this week. It was Four Kids Walk Into a Bank, number 1. This has originally been optioned way back in 2019. Tom and I were talking about that. That was the first time they put it on the list. Still in development limbo, but supposedly now Liam Neeson was involved in the adaptation, which caused it to hit the list again. $15 to $20 back in the fall. 9.8 going for $80. Now it's a $5 to $15 book for raw copies. 9.8, $40 and $105. So only two 9.8 recent sales. One for $40, one for $105. Overall, we're going to call this down in a trap because most of the sales are those raw copies. And yeah, you can get it for under 10 now as opposed to the 15, 20. Next, we had two Fortnite related books. We had Deadpool's Secret Wars, number 2, hitting the list. Third week in a row, we had a Gwenpool related book hitting the list. This is her first cover appearance. She does not appear in the story here because since her skin was added to Fortnite, since that character was added to Fortnite, 3 weeks in a row, we had her on this list for a different book. This one was hitting 95 to 120. For raw copies, 9.8, 230 to 260. Now it's 40 to 120, 9.8, 180 to 225. So down and I'll be back. This is obviously a book with a lot of value anyway, but no reason to chase it just because of Fortnite. Next, we have Iron Man number 118, the first appearance of James Rhodes, who, of course, becomes War Machine. And this was hitting the list because War Machine was added to Fortnite. Back then, $30 to $50 for raw copy. Now, $5 to $60, with most copies like around $20. 9.4, which was our highest graded ones to sell recently, sold for $60 and $80. So overall, we're going to call this down, and I'll be back. I'm a little surprised that First Rhodey is this cheap, but it's a pretty cheap book to get into. So if you like Rhodey, if you're a big fan of Iron Man and War Machine, this is a pretty cheap key. I didn't realize this book was this affordable. Next, we're going to move into covers. First up, we have I Lie Popeye, number 1. This was obviously a video game open order variant of a homage to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Last week it hit the list at 30 to 40, and it was on both lists. This week it was 30 to 45. Stayed on the CBSI list because there were still lots of sales. Now it's a $15 to $25 book. 9.8 going for 60 to, what happened to why is it not showing? 60 to 90. So yeah, my little data got messed up there for a second. But yeah, so down in a trap on this book. No reason to have chased it. Still kind of a fun cover, but definitely not a cover that was worth like jumping on in the moment. Next, we have The Ultimates number 4. This is Francesco Mobili, 1 in 25, was hitting the list at $30 to $50 back then, which is not even, just barely getting a double ratio, which is not a good sign for 1 in 25. And there was interest in this because the writer was claiming that the book would shed light on why on RDJ being cast as Doom. It doesn't. Now it's a $10 to $20 book, so not even going for ratio. 9.8, 40 to 90. So this is down in a dumpster fire. Back then, an average of 40, now an average of 15. No reason to chase this book. Next, we have NYX number 1, the Art Germ second print, 1 in 25. I was a little surprised this hit the list at this much because there is a Art Germ first print that just has a different colored background that's the same image of X23. But the second print was going for $90 to $100. Now, still going for $100 for raw copies. Only a couple sales though. 9.8, 80 to 130. So basically the same value as the raw copies. But yeah, so we're going to call it steady and worth it. It's still going right in that same range. Little odd to me that the 125 second print that just has a different colored background is going for more than the first print stuff. But what do I know? All right. Our last cover, just truly cover, I think, of the week is X-Men number 11, Wolverine book on the list for the second week in a row. They talked about it the week before. Back then, $20 for raw copies, 9.8, 111. Now it's a $5 to $15 book, 9.8, 70 to 90. So down in an I'll be back, down in a trap, I guess, is what I actually put here. Maybe more toward an I'll be back. That's the ride, broke trap. But yeah, great Jim Lee cover. Cool X-Men book, but not really a key in any way, shape, or form, and not no reason to chase the book. All right, with that, we got some buzz / cover stuff coming up, but first up, we're going to start with Aliens versus Avengers number 1. This is purely for buzz. People were jumping on the story, saying it was great. This cover A was going for $8 back then. Now it's a $5 to $15 book. The $8 was cover price, so it was just selling a lot of copies on the secondary market, not necessarily jumping in value. Still a $5 to $15 book, 9.8, 50 to 70. So steady and worth it. It's still sustaining some, that decent amount of value that the cover price was, but no reason necessarily to have chased it. Next, we have Aliens versus Avengers number 1, the Mark Brooks variant. This open order variant was going for $25 to $75 back then. Big money for an open order variant. Now it's a $20 to $35 book raw, 9.8, 75 to 100. So down in I'll be back. No reason to have jumped on this one at the higher values. If you got in on the low end back then, you're okay, but definitely a book that was worth being patient on. Next, a book that's going to look very familiar. We have Aliens vs. Avengers number 1, the Mark Brooks 1 in 100 Virgin variant. So same cover, just the Virgin variant. Usually, when you have a cover like the previous one, these Virgins don't necessarily hold a lot of value later on. This one was going for 180 to 200 right off the bat, which is really good for 1 in 100. And it's still a 150 to $250 book, 9.8, 350 to 400. So steady and worth it. A book that is still holding a lot of value, which is kind of surprising given, what's going on with just the trade dress version of this book. But trade dress has some value. This one still has a lot of value. People just really like this Venom versus the Alien cover. All right. With that, we had one more kind of buzz cover book. We have Trinity Special, World's Finest number 1, the Sawi 1 in 50. This collection of this Trinity one shot that was a collection of all the backup stories that have been appearing in Wonder Woman. Was going for $110 to $150 back then for 1 in 50, which is really, really good for 1 in 50. Raw copies now. Only one recent sale. It went for $130 though, still, so right in that range, steady and worth it based on that sale. There wasn't many of these listed for sale. This book appears to be, at least on eBay, a bit of a ghost. There's not hardly any there's none listed for sales. There haven't been many sales. This book has kind of just disappeared from the market a little bit, but what sales we did get were right in the same value. Next, we have Wonder Woman number 800, the first appearance of Trinity. This book was hitting the list because she was getting her own book. Plus, I think this was about the time that we got kind of the definition of what was going on with Trinity in terms of her heritage. Back then, $6 for a raw copy, which is basically cover price. 9.862, just a lot of sales, so that was why I was hitting the list. Now it's a $3 to $8 book, so it's steady, and I'll be back. No reason to have chased it in the moment, but it hasn't really fallen back because I didn't really have anywhere to go. Yeah, if you like Trinity, she's a very affordable character to get her first appearance, whether it be this or some of the other covers. They're all pretty affordable. Next, still on Comic Buzz, we got Hyde Street, the Ashcan #1. Basically, we got an Ashcan for the next Ghost Machine series here. And it was right out of the gate, was going for $15 to $20. Now it's a $5 to $10 book, 9.8, only one sale for $25. So down in a dumpster fire, because most of the sales, there was a couple sales up toward $10, but most of them were right at $5. Not a lot of interest going with this particular book anymore. All right, we're getting down to it, but we're still on Comic Buzz. We're 15 books in, and we haven't gotten to like MCU or DCU or nothing. We're still Comic Buzz, which is kind of fun for a week. We got Deadpool #31 hitting the list for the second or third week in a row. Or no, 2 weeks ago it hit the list. It was off last week. This is the first appearance of Ellie Camacho, Deadpool's daughter, who was taking over as Deadpool. Back then, this book was going, raw copies were going for $50, 9.8 hit $200. Now it's a $5 to $20 book for a raw copy. 9.8 still around $200, although just the one sale. So down in a trap with all those raw sales. Definitely a more affordable book right now, even though I believe this run with her being Deadpool is still going on. This book is definitely backed up. Next, we have Spider-Man #7, the first appearance of Spider-Boy. This was hitting the list, not because really Spider-Boy, but because Spider-Girl had been announced and was coming in the next issue or 2 issues down the road, I forget. So it was re-upping some interest in Spider-Boy. We actually just talked about the Spider-Girl book here this last week on Cash or Trash because of, her finally getting her own series now to follow up got announced. But anyway, this is called Spider-Boy's first appearance to go for $20 raw, which is kind of where it had been setting. 9.888, kind of where it had been setting, but just a lot of sales. Now it's still a $10 to $25 book raw, 9.8, 70 to 90. So steady, and I'll be back on this one. No reason to have chased it at that moment, but really this is where this book has been sitting for quite a long time in terms of value. All right, we did have 2 MCU books, and we were going to finish the list with those. First up, we have Fantastic Four #244, first appearance of Frankie Ray. Obviously she is a female herald of a Galactus known as Nova. When rumors first came out that there was going to be a female herald in the FF movies, this jumped up to like a $1,500 book and a 9.8, which is just crazy values. By this point, it was only a $40 book raw. 9.8's going for $280, and really not sure why I was hitting the list, because at this point we knew that probably weren't getting this character. At least the female Shala Ball was going to be in the movie, so probably weren't going to get Frankie Ray, but people were still kind of jumping on this book anyway, or still buying it. And it's reduced now that it had come back down. Well, it's come down even further. Now it's a $10 to $25 book, 9.8, 250 to 300. So down in a trap, even from the much lower values. So I'm not sure. Yeah, you'd be buying this because you're an FF collector, not because you think this character is going to be in the movies. Next, we have NYX #3, first appearance of Laura Kinney, X-23. Still getting the post-Deadpool movie bump. Although, really, there's a bump in sales here, and maybe it was because NYX was out, and they'd announced that she was getting her own solo series again. Otherwise, not sure why this was getting a bump about a month after the movie came out. But, and really, it's going for about the value it's been going for about the last year. Raw copies $450, 9.8 $1,000. Now raw copies $250 to $450, 9.8 $900 to $1,100. That's really where this book has been for about a year and a half, except for like small little blips when news about her related to Deadpool has been down quite a bit from its peaks in like 21, but still a very valuable book. So steady, and I'll be back on this one. No reason to have chased around the Deadpool movie, but a book that's still holding pretty steady. All right, that is this week's list. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time. Later.